Welcome to campus, Dini.
It's a beautiful campus. I haven't been on a campus in like quite some time, so I just love walking around. I grew up in an academic household. My father's a professor, so classrooms and like teaching, anything is home.
And
Smells so good.
You're just like so curiously observing the aesthetics of campus, like just
I know.
impressions so far.
You see Escher-esque, right? Like you walk up and then you look out and there's a courtyard there too. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm definitely on the second floor. I love anything that warps and disorients your mind a little bit. What is the ground level?
So this is Dini Parayitam, who's my grad school roommate in Iowa City. We lived in a big house called the Total Woman, named after the Maribel Morgan book on how to be a housewife in the 80s. Then after we left, it morphed into the Total Human. And now it's, I think, something else, just a nice.
Yeah, now it's family home. Yeah, unfortunate.
But that we met there in 2012.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, 2012. It's been like what, 15 years? I can't do math. 15 years?
Well, some of it was COVID. We'll talk about how you
Yeah.
spent quarantine
Yeah.
as well, which was kind of crazy. But I wanted to have her here today because she is not only a novelist, but also a screenwriter. She pivoted a little bit into screenwriting. And so I want to have you talk about why you were like, I want to work with people and do things.
Right. I was like, oh, novel writing is so difficult. Let me just bring some more people into the misery and work as a team. You know, from one industry that's difficult to another industry that's also difficult, you know. Most people make better choices, but I'm going to talk about better choices and
Better choices. But your
Yeah.
third film, I just saw on Facebook.
Yeah.
It was showing in Frankfurt. right
Yes,
now?
it is. Actually, last weekend it was showing at Frankfurt, a couple weeks late. I think in December it'll be in Italy. I'm really excited about that. I can't go to those events, but I'm excited that the film is going and traveling, doing its own thing. It's nice to be able to put work out there. A long time coming.
I know it's called Rom-Con.
It is called Rom-Con. It's romance convention, and it's about an Indian woman who goes to one of these like arranged marriage, speed dating events. It's kind of like, so I'm Indian, my cultural heritage, and arranged marriage is a huge part of our culture, but we're trying to modernize it. So we're trying to pair it with like kind of, you know, acceptable dating, which is what arranged dating looks like. And that's what the film is really about. It's about a woman who goes to one of these events and has a bunch of misconnections trying to find her partner. And yeah, romance convention. It's funny. I hope people laugh. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's really fun to bring people together and make.
Yeah, your novels are very funny too.
Well, one can hope.
I mean, your current project is about death, like the death of a parent, but it's also
It's a
really
comedy.
funny. It's sort of about like the struggles of disappointing your parents and the knowledge that one day they will go, right?
Yeah.
And so like, what do you do if you're like, I don't like my career and my father is dying and I have had to put that bad career on hold. How do I make the most of it? But,
Yeah, I think, I mean, as I entered my 30s, maybe many of you hopefully don't identify with this, but like the two things that are constantly orbiting my mind are like my aging parents, which like unfortunately I really love. Like I wish they were really mean to me. So I would be so like conscious of their mortality, but like that's one thing that's always on my mind, and the other is like, oh man, my career is always taking a bit longer than I thought. Like the goalpost just keeps getting further and further, you know.
Yeah.
Especially because like I think Jesse and I, we went to grad school when we were in our early 20s. Like I was 22 right off the bat. So at that time I thought I had like, all the time in the world.
Yeah.
And then the industry just keeps changing so fast that all the timelines have been warped in a way that I've had to learn to sort of let go of my expectations and really concentrate on the process.
Yeah.
And just enjoy like.
I know the power of friendship is another cheesy thing I hope you get out of Dini's talk, because she actually accomplishes quite a lot through the power of friendship.
The only way I accomplish these days, but yeah.
Yeah.
So
So like, can you tell us about like the first time you wrote a screenplay and why?
actually it was because of like Iowa. Iowa, like Minnesota, it's really cold. and you get lonely, especially if you're working in a medium that no one else has read or knows,
Yeah.
and everyone else is sort of like sucking off in their corners working on their novels or poetry, right? And there was a screenwriter coming into town, David Milch, who apparently graduated from our program. He did, I believe, Deadwood and another sort of like NYPD series or something. And he was coming into town and I just wanted to have a conversation with him. So for that, a friend of mine was sitting in the library working on our novels. And I was like, I really just want to write a screenplay. And then we started talking and I was like, why can't we just turn this dialogue or whatever we're doing into dialogue? And we wrote a pilot just like then and there, 30 pages. And we had no egos attached. We had no expectations. We just turned it in. If he likes it, he'll talk to us. If he doesn't, we have nothing to lose. We can go back to our novel. And that's sort of like how the bug caught because he did like it. And then we were like, oh, this is actually kind of fun to have a conversation and do something together. And at the end of the day, neither one of us is like super attached to it. So it's easy to put out there in the world. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's the best part about being a screenwriter is that nothing is really perfect, even when it's finished as a full product, right? So that's how it started. And I remember at the time, I was telling Jessie this, in a conversation with him, he asked us only one question. He was like, I really like this, but are you guys willing to move to LA? And I don't know, I was like, yes, I would do anything without realizing like, yeah, it's really expensive. And how would I support myself in LA? I don't even drive.
Okay, you don't. I always forget.
I know, and LA is like, spread out. But now like things have really changed. You can really live anywhere and work remotely and all of our meetings are on Zoom and that's made it very nice to be a screenwriter and work with people who live in LA, work with people who live in New York while still like kind of living in Iowa City.
Yeah, because you just moved back to where we went to grad school a
Yeah.
couple months ago. Before that, you were living in New York.
Yes. Because I think in New York, I allowed myself to make those connections because David Milch, like he started something in me and I wanted to continue it. Though I had abandoned that project, I started working with another roommate of ours, Erica Marchand, and we started writing together. She's a poet. I'm a novelist. Again, neither one of us are screenwriters, but we're really playing to our strengths and made it kind of a writing team that other people can now acknowledge as like a pair, to be hired. And in New York, while I was living, I was really trying to network and build like a group of people that are outside of the mainstream, indie filmmakers who are looking for writers. And what we do is we hear their stories, we get commissioned to write the screenplays. And if we like the directors, if we like the producing team involved, we take on the project. Or especially if we like the project. There are some projects that we reject for sure. So that's how like New York worked out for a couple of years. And now that I have that, I'm like, I'm done. I'm done networking.
I'm done networking.
I have more projects that I need to actually write them now. So that's why I moved back to Iowa City.
Yeah.
In a quiet space.
You were talking yesterday about how it's really possible to do remote screenwriting now in a way it wasn't before.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think if you want to be a screenwriter, first, what's really important is knowing how to build a network, before you really sit down and like understand. And the way you have to build your network is understanding who you are and what you bring to the team, right? So if I'm talking to a director, I have to know like how to make myself seem like an asset, right? And that means like really sussing out what their vision is and understanding how I can enhance that vision. And that takes some time. That took me a long time to kind of figure out because I'm a shy person. I know it doesn't seem like it. I'm actually really shy. And so for the longest time, I was like, oh, but what can I bring to this director who's done like X number of projects and won X number of awards? Well, I don't like to fake it, but like, I like to be honest. I like to say, oh, I would like this experience of working with you. I like to bring my voice to the project that you have, and hopefully we can write something together that you want to film. So really building that, and while you're working on it, working on the friendship. So all the directors I've worked with, I've become friends with, and I've gotten to know them. So now all of their like their future projects, they do want to work with me and Jerry.
Yeah.
They do want to work with us. So it becomes like more of a friendship outside of that network. And that takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that? You know, Neil Gaiman is problematic or whatever, but he does have that like best 2 out of 3 thing where it's like if you're nice and people like you, you can turn in work late. Like,
That is true. That is actually true. Nowadays, I'm just like, I just told this director I've been working with for like 5 years now, right? At first, I used to be really conscious of all the deadlines I missed. I would be like, I'm so sorry, Sachin, I'm so sorry. But now I'm like, no, I've earned the privilege to be late. You know the work is going to be good, and we have that rapport enough, and you like me enough that I can tell you it's a little late, and the work always, gets done.
Yeah.
In its own way.
You're talking about like the ADHD power of a deadline.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I overpromised that I would get this done by this time.
I know.
But then I did do it.
I know it always gets done somehow. I'm not sure what I'm compromising. I wouldn't suggest it. I would suggest being a little bit more mindful of your time. Yeah.
You're giving yourself advice.
Yeah, I did tell Jessie that this was going to become a therapeutic session where we're basically talking about the things that I really need to talk about and acknowledge. Yeah. But the other thing about networking, I don't really like the word network, and I don't really think of like making relationships that way, but I've had to also focus a lot about what's my narrative and who I am. And as an Indian American, a lot of like my network at first was Indian filmmakers in America, and really looking at like my identity and where I can, connect with somebody. But these days I have multiple like stories. I grew up in Oklahoma, and my dad is an academic, and it's really about finding like which story I can use to connect with people. And they're all me. It's all me. So if I'm talking to a Indian director, I lean on my Indianness. If I'm talking to like an American director, I lean on the fact that I've grown up mostly in America. Yeah. And that helps to kind of know who you are and know what your story is. Which story to use where, which card to play with.
Yeah, which card you play where. But then you said like kind of the flip side of it is when you've been submitting your novel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where you've gotten feedback where it's like, why can't we make it more obvious that these characters are Indian right off the get-go? Like this is a novel with Indian characters. Can you play up the Indianness of it?
Yeah.
And you're like, they're people.
It's demoralizing when other people, like when the industry, right? It's not even just individuals, but the industry wants to pigeonhole you or place some sort of like narrative importance on you and your life and what you bring, right? And it's not always like your choice. So yeah, I've definitely gotten this feedback before. One of my favorite feedbacks is from an editor who said, I love the story, but I didn't know the characters were Indian until page 5. I need to know by like end of paragraph 1. And I was like, how would I work that in? I don't walk around being, well, I did today. I walked in and I'm Indian, right? Imagine a character just sitting there, dealing with the death of her father. It was like, I'm Indian, by the way. So I just found that like so funny. And at the time, I think I had a lot more tolerance for it. But these days, I just write back and I say, do you really think that's an essential thing? Like, is that always like the most important thing to learn about a character? The answer is yes, because it didn't get published.
The answer is yes.
So figure out a way to say you're right, the identity of the character.
I guess. Or don't, and maybe we all just don't.
Don't, yeah. I think there's another sort of like a way in which I've come to realize the publishing industry is looking at least like writers from the diaspora or writers from immigrant backgrounds. I think there's like 2 different types of stories that they expect. One is us writing about India and about like what's happening there politically, which I'm disconnected to. Like I have no idea what's happening. Or it's about the immigrant struggle. And I mean, yes, it is a struggle, but my dad was an academic, his accent has not thinned at all, despite like 30 years living here. So it's hard to constantly play up something that isn't necessarily my perspective.
Yeah.
But I had a great childhood. My dad loves lawn mowing, by the way. Just, yeah. Just thinks that's like the funnest thing ever.
Your parents are adorable. Like, they visited us in grad school. And then afterwards, your mom read both of our star charts. Right?
Yes.
And your dad translated them for her, and sent us like a 7-page document of like, this is your future.
Yeah.
And it was surprisingly accurate.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it was actually demoralizing. I was like, this is sad, Dad, that you're spoiling life, you know? The mysteries of life be spoiled. But yeah, I also really love the fact that my mom thought that like all of the, you know, bottles of spirits in the house were
yeah, she thought we had after parties for all the writers that would come to campus, and other parties, just regular parties.
regular.
And your mom happened to stumble across our recycling bin. And she was like, what are those?
Yeah.
And
And I
we were
told
like,
her, because I'm a fiction writer and a very good one, I told her, Mom, they're vitamin bottles. And she was like, is that what Jessie drinks all the time? She has amazing hair. And I was like, yes.
Yes,
They're
that is
for-
vitamins for my hair. Jeez, Mom, it's not just a bunch of PBR.
They had no idea. They were like, yeah, it smells like medicine. I was like, yes, it is.
But like, because of all those parties though, I now have like friends, like Kevin Brockmeyer came to campus last
Yeah.
year. For a rate that normally we couldn't get Kevin Brockmeyer for. Not that he like really hung out at the parties, but you know, like we hung out when he was my professor. Yeah, and you're just really good at that. You're good at like maintaining connections with people.
Well, it's like,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah.
So I used to be so shy in the workshop that you didn't know this, but I'm revealing my secret too, but
Good.
there was this like library area, right, common area where people would work, and I was so shy that I would wait there like a spider if someone would come in, and as they were making coffee, I got really good at making coffee in this very complicated coffee machine that existed. So I'd be like, do you want coffee? And then I would just start talking to them, and it was just more for me than for them. It was more so that I would be less nervous around that person. And that's how I like got to know so many people. And I think I learned more from their stories and where they were coming from and what inspired them, and what they do to write and what they're giving up to be able to write. And that's actually really why I like, you know, remain friends with, like it became friends, right? And the community is so important because writing is very lonely. You face a lot of rejections. Every time I've ever gotten a rejection, I called Jessie.
You're like, what is Martha doing? Or
Yeah.
whatever.
I'm like, this is what she said. What does this mean? And it helps because then it sustains you, and you say, oh, even though this person who doesn't know me is saying I'm a good writer but doesn't want my book, Jessie loves me, and she's saying I should continue writing, and
Yeah.
like that voice, you know, takes over. That's why it's so important. And then you get hired by your friends, directors that you meet that are your friends. That's always nice. You build a life as a freelancer working together with people that you love. Yeah.
And your friends can be like, Jessie, I don't think this book that you're rewriting for the millionth time is something you're excited about. And I can tell because I've read all of your writing.
That's true. That's true. There's a version of the novel. Jessie's an incredible writer, and every idea that Jessie's ever had, I've been in the privileged position to hear and know and hear sort of like process and ideate. And this last book that she sent in, I was just like, oh no, this is, and then I agonized over sending you that email.
No,
where
I was like, tell me.
delve it.
It was the one that I started with an agent that I signed with at Iowa on the basis of 40 pages, and it wasn't done. And she just kept telling me how to write it over and over. And by the end of it, it was like draft 17 or whatever. The characters had died. And I had lost all of the like plot threads on the page, right? Like, and you were like, I can tell that you hate this book.
Yeah.
And I was
There
like,
was-
I do hate this book. You're right. Thank you.
There was just something coming out of it, you know, like sometimes editors and agents and even like your directors or producers, regardless of what medium you're working in, it's like it's like you're throwing a party, right? And someone comes in and they're like, I can't find the bathroom, right? So you can either, next time you throw a party, you can either put some like, you know, signs up to show them where the bathroom is, which you do, and then someone's like, I can't find the signs. Right? And eventually you'll do this enough to where you're like, you know what, toilet bowl right here. And it's like in the middle of your living room and it's not where it's supposed to be. And you're like, I fixed everything. Now they can't complain about where the toilet is, right? But that's obviously not, that's not where you want to be.
But then sometimes it's on them, right?
It's
Like
on
where you're
them.
like, hey, listen, maybe you should have known that this was a sliding door put
Yeah.
in the basement bathroom before you tried to beast your way out of it. And then told everybody at the party that you'd broken our door, but not us. Like,
Yeah.
anyway, it was
That
just
also
super cool.
happened.
So.
So yeah, so I guess like it's a really bad metaphor of like saying you have to know when to take criticism and change, and then when to just also like push back and say, no, actually, I'm the writer, I'm the creative artist in this. You're a producer, right? Or you're a director. Like I can explain my vision or what I'm trying to do to you on this page, and you either get it or we will just sit here for like a couple of hours and hack it out, you know. And I think I've had a time of doing that. I think it's important that no matter what you do, you sort of like learn your lane. Especially in filmmaking, if I can say that's my latest word, is like this is my lane, right? Especially in like the film industry, which is very hierarchical. There's like a lot more money involved, so there's so much more at stake. So there's something called above the line. So it's like director, producers, you have your screenwriters, we're all like above the line folks, which means that we all do the work before we even go into production, right? So I have to write the screenplay in what we call a development phase, and I work with my director on the creative vision, and then the producer comes on and says, oh, this is going to be so expensive. And then I have to change it, right, etc. Or I argue for why it's important to have car chase. That's $1 million. And so it's important to have like a good conversation between all three of us, right? But there are times where I've had to be like, a director will say, well, which actor do you think we can cast for this? And I have to be the one to be like, that's not my place. Like that's above my pay grade. Also, like that's not my lane. My lane is to like write something that inspires you, that you like. Your job is to cast, right? And to really differentiate yourself and like define your role so that you don't end up doing a lot more work. When I started off, I was doing a lot more like producing work just to get the projects done. And now I'm just like, nope, that's a producer's job. Figure out locations, a producer's job. Casting, there's a casting director. I know one, you know? So that's been really important to push back. And
Cool.
your lane. Yeah.
You
Yes,
guys
yeah.
love it. That's a great answer. Do you guys have questions for Dini off that? I'll ask again later too. But but then you forgot. If you remember it, let me know. I'm just gonna check on the Zoom chat right around you. I'm so sorry. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, somebody was like, how are we related? By blood. No, we're roommates, but good answer. Thank you.
We are kind of.
Yeah, we're
Maybe.
forged in the bond of the total woman, which I found at a gas station.
Like that or something?
The nurse, yeah, that book could be, it's a little cursed, so. Anybody, any questions come to mind?
I do. So yeah, so my name is Brett again. I teach philosophy and I graduated from the University of Iowa.
Oh, yeah.
I was a PhD there in 2007.
Awesome.
So I'm interested in screenwriting and I've written a screenplay and it's gotten like placed at competitions, not never like top prize, but like top 25% or whatever.
Amazing.
So how do I go about like actually getting that? Like I thought, like my sort of idea was like, well, if it's good enough, right, you could get some attention with that, and then what? Like how would I ever go about like getting this into the hands of somebody who might read it and think, yes, I would like to make this as a film?
That's a really great question, actually. And like one that like I also started off just submitting to contests.
Okay.
On like Coverfly and trying to see like if the screenwriting was even like competitive, right?
Yeah.
Compared to what was in the industry. And what I do now is like once I've amassed, congratulations on like placing and in different contests, it's just really competitive. So it is a big deal. Once you've sort of amassed a certain amount of credibility attached to that script with these contests, what you would do essentially is look up production companies and producers or development executives that are associated with those production companies. It's all either on LinkedIn, or I can also send you and Jesse like a packet of information
Okay.
that has like at least like 100 of the best production companies and execs that are always like reading from what we call slush file. And you would query them with the project, and you would say, hey, this is placed in like the top 10% of this contest, or I was a finalist at Sundance. Would you be interested in producing this? You have like a rough idea of what the budget might be. And most production companies are taking on projects anywhere between 3 to 5 million from newcomers, like new emerging writers, right? Emerging screenwriters. So that's like a great place to sort of talk to them and just approach them, email them, right? Call them. I've been like really shameless about it. It's been like, I know sometimes I'm like, you're never going to email me back, but then they do. But I'm going to send you this information because you have done Minari, and Plan B did Minari, and I have movies that are similar to Minari, and I'm like, oh.
Comps like for novels, right? Where you're like, a comparative title
Yeah.
would be this and this.
The other thing that has really worked for me is finding those indie films that really resonate with my own work, especially if you're writing something that's like more indie, and finding the producers on that. Like, actually, they are really easy to approach because that's what they want. They want the next project to produce. They want to take the next project and sell.
Yeah.
So like my latest producer, I found by that. I watched this great movie called Queen of My Dreams. It's by a director, a Pakistani American director named Fawzia Mirza. And I found this woman who produced the film. And I was like, oh, I stalked her a little bit. And I was like, she seems really cool. And she seems like the kind of person who would respond to my work. So I messaged her on Instagram, or I messaged her on LinkedIn, whatever I can find, or even her own website. And I say, you produced this project. I really quite liked it. I have a similar project. Would you be interested? And most of the time they are interested, especially if you're a screenwriter or a director. If you're a director, they're even more interested if you're interested in directing your own material. I'm not, so I just approach it as a screenwriter. Producers want power. So they're like, do you have a director in mind? And you say no, they get so excited. They get to hire the director. And then I'm always like, can you please just help me sell it? Can you please just help me take it to the next level? And that's what they want to hear. That's what they want to do. And they've been really helpful. Yeah. I hope that kind of.
No, that's very helpful, because I'm I thought maybe reached a dead end where maybe my next thing would be to try to turn it into a novel, but it sounds like maybe I'm giving up too early.
Yeah,
And
too
then I
early.
wanna,
Well, I don't know
Yeah.
how long you've been working on it, but I've been working, the things that are in pre-production right now, I know people have been working on it for at least like 5-6 years. The way the industry is running right now, it's running 5 to 6 years behind because of the WGA strikes, the SAG strikes that happened, and all of the AI disruption that's happening right now. Everything is a little bit more behind schedule. And even like the way, like, for example, Paramount, right, used to be a great place to pitch, but with all of the stuff that happened with Paramount and the administration, they were also caught up in that. So they weren't taking on any project. This is all sort of like intel that you kind of have to start learning and sussing out from the news and from friends that are in different stages of their own development process.
Yeah.
And
How is AI impacting?
very badly.
Yeah.
It is, yeah, it's actually very scary because I think a lot of directors and producers who know what they're doing will hire the writer, right? And will know the difference that a writer makes. And then those are the people that you end up wanting to work with because they really value what you bring. And AI is it's just really cheapening the writing process. And there are individuals who will try to convince me that to use AI to, make it more efficient, make it better. And I'm just like, I have to draw the line. I have to save my own
Ethical
Yeah.
boundary where,
Yeah, and I have to be like, I'm not a screenwriter that will use this, and if that's what you want, then you have to hire someone else, which is unfortunately the thing I've had to say sometimes.
Completely ruins the whole point of writing, making everything, is kind of part of the fun of it.
yeah, what's the point of
Yeah.
writing anyway? What are we doing this for?
Do this,
Exactly.
That's, it's so funny because like early on in the AI conversation, and this was just when I was like starting off as a screenwriter, there was an action thriller that I ended up writing.
Okay, I
Yeah.
forgot that, yeah.
Yeah, and it was all like greenlit. The producers were like, yes, we will release money. And I was like, yes, money. Please, like pay me as well.
Yeah,
Right.
me.
And then the director was like, nope, I'm not interested. Right. And so I flew to London on my own dime to convince him to please, do this story. And unfortunately, he had the IP rights. So we couldn't hire anybody else to direct the film either. So it's also important to, kind of keep your IP rights if you're writing original screenplays. And the producer is coming on as a hiree rather than someone who's going to take away your IP rights. Right. So anyway, this man who was like, he looked me straight dead in the eye and was like, I'm just waiting for AI to rewrite the screenplay.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just
Yeah,
like.
he said this to me.
To your
and-
face.
To my face. And I was like, oh my, and he works at Amazon. So his day job was, he was an engineer at Amazon. And I looked at him and I said, dude, I'm doing something I love and it's a risk and it's been really difficult to do a freelance work, right? Waiting for payments to come through and the difficulty of like sustaining myself while doing this, right? You're not taking any risks at all and you are getting excited by me getting replaced. What does that say about you? You should want someone to replace you at Amazon so that you can become a full-time like filmmaker and director and yeah.
I think the product is they don't care about the people who are making it or the quality of it, they just want to credit it.
Absolutely, but that's the difference, right? This language, product, produce, generate, right? It's not
They
really,
don't see the soul of it, they don't care.
it doesn't matter, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to create, we're trying to entertain, we're trying to
Make people feel something.
yeah, make people feel exactly. Like I don't know how many times I've been like, no, it's not an algorithm. Like you cannot, you cannot explain this to me in a way that will ever convince me that plugging it into AI will make it somehow feel. You know why? Because AI doesn't have anything at stake. You don't have anything at stake with it. So when I'm writing something, that if I hand it over to you, whatever you're going to say might hurt me, right? So your response to it, there's some stake attached. So you're going to be more critical of it. You're going to be more caring of it, just because you know that it's coming from my mind and I put some time into it. If I was AI and I was generating something and giving it to you, yeah, you'd be like, whatever, AI doesn't have feelings. Like I can just say it's bad, and AI is like, I'm sorry. ChatGPT is like, you're right.
A good example would be, there's a project where a bunch of people that they're going, actually,
Oh, yeah, the Discord one. Yeah, anyway, go on.
But one of the things is I'm basically trying to piece together little bits and pieces of an entire just existence of an individual. Because there are 4 different factions on one colony, I guess you can say. And each faction acts a little different. And for 2 of them, I only had like tiny little stereotypical things to go off of, but no reasoning for why they work. So what I ended up doing was I took these little qualities in each and tried to give a reason or explanation as to why they're there, even if they were unsure if this is the things, but here's what we think it might be. And one of the other ones was actually made by a 17-year-old, and unfortunately he's not the best at grammar or sentence structure. Me and my friend were like trying to help him get a little better. He's already improving his own like capitalized string of words in a sentence to give them more like, this is important.
I do that when I write it by hand sometimes. I'll like capitalize something halfway through and be like, well, I already wrote it down. Keep going.
We're just trying to help him out, and I essentially told them like, hey, if you can write it for yours, I can go in and try to like make it a little better.
Yeah.
Make it easier for me. But I didn't want to lose his original like meaning or something, because I'll read something, I don't get a little confused, like read it 10 more times and maybe even ask him, like, what are you trying to say? Because I want to fully understand, are you trying to put emphasis on this or this? Are you trying to address this thing or this thing?
Yeah.
Just the back and forth is really important, because then you fully acknowledge what they're trying to say. And
Yeah.
you don't lose the meaning.
Exactly. And that's only because you care about them and you're not also assuming that you know
Mm.
where they're trying to place the emphasis or what they're trying to say. You're giving space to be, like, giving them space to be unpredictable, right? To be beyond your understanding. And you're also
Mm.
giving yourself that space to learn from someone else, from another mind. ChatGPT can't teach you anything, but it's talking to you. I don't even know you, and I'm learning something, right? And that's what's important, even when you're collaborating in a space that wants you to be efficient. And there are all these deadlines, but there's always an importance that you have to push back and you have to say, no, you're hiring a human being. Like, if you want, like, something else, then this is the wrong field. Get into IKEA furniture. I don't know. Like, make efficient things, but art is not where. Also, like, what's at stake? Really? Like, I'm like, okay, we're a little behind on this film. Like, who's
There's not, like-
dying on the table, right? Like, we're not doctors. We're not, you're not like facilitating. Like, someone was like, how does it? Yeah, what's the urgency now? No, like anything that you make will always be urgent whenever it's ready and whenever it's made. A good movie is more memorable and you can rewatch it and watch it and watch it. A bad movie is just like a dime a dozen,
You watch
So-
it once, don't care.
You watch it once, you don't care, Exactly. So what kind of work do you really want to do? And if it's something that you really care about, you wouldn't mind immersing yourself for a few years doing it. And it's even better, to be honest, to do it with people that you love. Like, there are days when I'm just like, Jerry, my writing partner, I'm like, Jerry, I don't feel this story. And she'll sit there and she'll be like, no, but it's important. Like, this is important. This is why we have to write it. And there are days when she's like, I'm over it. I can't even be bothered to care. And it's important for me to be like, no, we do have to care because we're trying to say something. And it's nice to have like a team of people who also believe in that. And that's what makes it fun at the end of the day. We're all like in a collective D&D situation on this journey. That's basically what this talk is about. It's actually D&D.
A pivot.
Yeah.
But like, that's the amazing thing that MFA school or doing a professional degree after college can do for you. Because that is a professional degree in literally doing that. Like, we went to Iowa together, right? And we spent 2 years sitting around tables practicing how to give feedback. Some people were mean. Some people improved with time. Some people said nothing at all because they were afraid of Marilyn Robinson.
Me.
But yeah.
I said nothing at all. My first year of grad school, my first semester of grad school, I had Marilyn Robinson as our instructor, and I was like, what can I possibly say? In
She won the
class?
Pulitzer like shortly before
Friends
we
with
were.
Obama,
Yeah.
like, who am I,
She
right?
Speaks in
I'm
paragraphs.
from LSU, right? Like, so I sat there and everyone would go around and I would say the one thing that I needed to say to get participation points, because we didn't even have
We
grades.
didn't even have grades. It was like smiley face.
Yeah. And so, but then I absorbed a lot. And so being in that environment is also about, like, again, meeting people and learning their stories and building that community that has, I can tell you, like, over 10 years later, become so essential to my life and my life as a writer. I think it's one of the only reasons why I still continue to write is because of friends like you and, people that I can collaborate with. I'm always like roping people in. My cohort, if someone's like having a hard time with their novel, I'm like, you want to write a screenplay together? And I've like started just roping people in and being like, hey, you want to polish like a screenplay that I've written and, punch up the dialogue and be a dialogue writer? And people are more excited by it,
Yeah.
want to take it on than before,
I think the best writing, I was saying the other day that I did in grad school, were not the very like dramatic short stories. I'm like, they like realism here. Oh God, I better do it. But rather my friend Cristobal and I were the writers of the roast series Talk Art. Where once a month, a poet or a fiction writer would go up, they'd do like a 15-minute reading, but before it would be a skit mocking their life. Like, and for instance, one time I had Dini play our friend Van Chijitaram, who's like usually all in black. Like he's a character I don't really know how you describe Van.
He's like a sci-fi character that really belongs like on Mars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he would travel in this giant backpack, flanking with like stuff, and so we borrowed the backpack, we added more stuff to it.
I added a
You got a
mustache.
Fu Manchu, yeah.
Yeah.
It was just anyway, but I loved it, and because I got to work with Chris, and I worked way harder on it than I did on my fiction, I think. Yeah. I
I
don't
think
know.
that's the other thing, like when you're working with people that, you know, you care about, you end up working on harder, on something, even if you don't always believe like 100% of it, right? There are some scenes that I've written that I've had to really defend to Jerry, and Jerry's like, this is stupid, you know, like, and I'm like, no, but it's actually genius, and she's like, no, it's really stupid, and it can be fun because it really diminishes your ego. And I think as artists, we do attach a lot of ego into what we produce and what we write. But it's really nice to just have a friend just kind of like call you out and say, hey, no, this is, I can tell you got bored here, and you know, you need to put it away or you need to rewrite it, or, you know, and that can make the process really fun because whatever we come up with next is much better and continues, right, the story. Yeah. Grad school, I would recommend grad school for everyone, especially if you can embody two or remember two things. The one is like, don't have an ego. Go in to learn from your cohort. It's not a competition. I think that's something I always tell students who want to do an MFA. You're not there to compete with other writers. You're
No.
really there for your community. These are going to be your colleagues. These are going to be your like people like 50 years later are going to write about how you guys were friends. And, you know, drinking.
Or you run into Garth Greenwell in a cafe.
Yeah.
But because he remembers like how fun it was to be in grad school with you, you're like, you just won the National Book Award, the Penn
Penn
Faulkner.
Faulkner
I'm not
Award.
really sure. He was like writing frantically, like we later learned it was like an essay for Harper's.
Yeah,
Right. But we were like, should we have Garth Greenwell in the coffee shop?
and we did.
And we like peeked around. We were like, Garth. And he was like, oh my God, oh thank God. And he went out for dinner with us and it was delightful. So,
Yeah.
but have I won the Penn Faulkner or the National Book Award or anything? No.
Does he care is the
He does
question.
not care.
And he does not care. He does not care. Because what he remembers is that we shared an experience together and we had a great time, you know? So imagine like, the other thing about MFAs is that the other thing to remember is just, like, it's not a competition, and two, it's not a race. There's no like set deadline or set timeline that you have to publish a book or that you have to have a movie out, you know? Some of the best directors do their work in their 40s. Some of the best writing, like Marilyn Robinson didn't publish her book until her 48 or something.
Yeah.
I could be lying.
Yeah, she wrote it in one draft in a closet in 3 months and then sent it out. But
I
yeah,
don't believe that, but
the mythos. Oh, but then I asked her what she did in the like 30 years between her first book, which is astonishing, and then Gilead, which is also astonishing. I was like, did you write fiction? And she went, no, I soiled pages. I'm like, wow, you really like marched the beat of your own drummer, dude. That's awesome.
yeah, so sometimes you can get caught up in the, like, oh my God, this person's winning this award, or this movie is getting into like Sundance, why not me, right? But the answer is like, it's very subjective. Just be happy for that person, become friends with that person. So your victory and their victory, it's all shared victories. And yeah, and just move through life as if like it's going to happen. It's just, you just don't know when. You want someone to spoil it for you, call me and I'll get your birth chart. Read by my parents.
Call me,
Yeah.
I'll get your birth chart. That's amazing. We have a couple more minutes. Does anybody have more questions?
I've got to go teach, but I'm gonna reach out to you later. if that's Okay, okay, thanks. That's here, okay,
Yeah, I'll send you the packet of the 100
Okay.
production.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be super great. All right, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
You're wonderful. Thanks, Jesse.
Well, thanks, Brett.
I
Oh,
gotta
boy.
follow him, he's literally my professor.
perks of being a small campus, that's
sorry,
SMSU, like.
So, it's like themes of the power of friendship, right? We talked about-
I literally had that written down.
Yeah.
The power of friendship.
We're going to like hammer it in.
Yeah, so like friendship with, and sometimes it's people in the industry that are gatekeepers that are going to green light your thing. People who are maybe your audience that are, or receiving your work and those human connections. But can you talk about like, do you think it applies to building an audience at all? Like, I think you're doing, some like behind the scenes narrative and events like this is really helpful, or like friendships that are champions of your work that can help you build and bring an audience with you. And do you think as a screenwriter, having a built-in audience is important as much as just the quality of the work and how your work will be received? Because I don't think some people always know, like, they might think it's great quality work, but not even know who wrote it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. You have to like sort of divide your time between the two, right? You as a screenwriter will always be like, film is a director's world, right? TV is more for the screenwriter. So if you want to be known as a screenwriter, no one cares about directors on TV. You go for show running, right? That's the kind of career that you want. You want to be a showrunner. So having an inbuilt audience is important. And the way that I think one goes about it is you really have to divide your time. If you divide your time between, okay, I want like the masses who are not involved, masses meaning like anyone who's outside of the industry, who's not involved, to know my work and recognize it. So I can recognize when a screenplay is written by like certain writer, right? And then I really, really want directors to recognize my work, right? So I'm really like honing in on the directors I want to impress, the directors I want to work with. I want them to approach me. So it's really two different. Like that's also the audience I have to care about, or producers that I have to care about. And they're not necessarily even gatekeepers. They're the ones who are going to hire me, right? And through them, I can reach larger and larger audiences. This I reach through going to networking events, going to conferences, going to film festivals, right? And meeting people one-on-one. And film festivals are really a space for that, exactly. So if I had the funds, I'd go to Frankfurt and meet people who
Yeah.
can then recognize me. But
Yeah.
I'm more, yeah, Italy, right? Like, but it's more important to then be selective about where you're going. Go to the bigger festivals where you can say, meet a lot more people in New York and in LA. That's really it. Like New York and LA and Austin. Austin for like indie filmmaking. And then if you are working on regional films, it's so important to, come to Minnesota,
Yeah.
go to Iowa, right? Go to Chicago and understand like the filmmakers that are working in that region, especially if you're trying to work in that region. So it's important to kind of figure out like which region you want to go to and then network, find your audience at these film festivals. That's how I would do it.
Really interesting. Like, I hadn't thought about it in that way at all before, but it makes me think like part of it is maybe reconciling a little bit of like, a lot of artists don't want to do mainstream work,
Yeah.
right? And like, maybe that's a compromise that you have to make to get an audience in some cases. Like, I think of somebody like Shonda Rhimes, who's like the first woman to have 3 national televised series go over 100 episodes,
Yeah.
right? And maybe the work that she would do is not the same as how it ended up after the Hollywood studio system. Right? But now she has a huge audience. So yeah.
It takes time, right? And what really matters at the end of the day is how authentic and how different your voice is from everyone else in the industry. So for a while, like they say, okay, try to kind of fit in, try to play, but actually what really matters is how well you can stick out. So Mindy Kaling is an example, right? Mindy Kaling was not given any sort of like headway into the industry. So she started in a writer's room and then she started writing her own part
Oh, yeah.
in the office,
I knew
right?
this.
And she, and then she's now amassed like what we'd call like an aesthetic. Like people understand what Mindy Kaling's like products will feel like, look like. And so that takes some longevity. It takes some time, I don't have that. for sure. I think it'll take me like another 5-10 years.
Chess moves to it, yeah.
Yeah, there are chess moves to it, but it's like a slow build.
But what we've
Thank you.
noticed about people who are successful in this industry or in like writing in general are just the people who have kept doing
Yes,
it.
perseverance and like knowing that, again, you're not on any timeline, or that you, just because someone has won an award doesn't mean necessarily anything, you know?
Yeah,
It's those two things, and I wish.
you can have a beautiful agent and be really unhappy, like, you know, like, there's no there
The number of
there.
people who've said, you know, my first book was a bestseller, but I'm having a hard time selling my second book. The number of people who've said that to me just makes me feel like, oh, it's just all an uphill battle. And yeah, no, it's just like goalpost, goalpost, goalpost. I once explained it to my husband, who's an engineer, amazing. Cause he's like an 8 to 5, you know. I was like, no, I feel like I'm climbing up a mountain, and like, I'm just like, the view here at this place is really nice, but I have to get up like even further, and then I keep going, and then I realize I come to a clearing, and I'm like, oh, this is just I have to keep going, you know, keep moving up. And at some point or another, you know, you get tired. And you just wanna, you know, have some time, take a, you know, take a beat, set up shop, and then regain your energy, and then keep climbing. It's never downhill.
It's never downhill if you keep going, but it also isn't like the end of the Chronicles of Narnia where they go to heaven and heaven is just a series of infinitely larger Narnias,
Yeah.
like further in and farther up. That's a horror story. Like just keep going. Narnia gets better and better. There's more of it. Like, I just don't think we should think of our careers that way.
Sort of designing
Yeah.
what you want, right?
I love your question, because I really have had to think about this too, because I'm such a shy person. I'm like, how will anybody remember me and recognize me? You know, who am I, right? Because all the credit really does end up going to the director sometimes, and even the producer on any of the films that are, you know, we've made. But I like the fact that like, I'm like a DP in that way, right? A cinematographer. We don't know cinematographers, we don't know editors of movies, right? But who knows? Directors know, right? And producers know. So those are the people that you kind of want to be in the mind of. So I've had to be like, oh, I want directors, right? I'm gonna concentrate on that and become like who they want to work with. It also helps to have an endearing personality. I'm quoting myself. No,
No,
quoting
we
other people.
literally, like, but it's true. I was walking the book fair with you at AWP on the last day 2 years ago. And this like pretty famous poet came around the corner of the book fair.
Best time ever.
Yeah, and he stopped you and he went, oh my God, who are you?
I know.
You have the most beautiful eyes. And then you realize you're from the same province. or
Oh,
the
I knew
same-
him.
Yeah,
I knew
you
him.
who
I
he
was like, it's Qasim Ali. Like, oh my God. And he just came up to me and was like, can we be friends?
I'm
And I
just
was
standing
like,
there, like, no, I'm here, whatever. And then we walked away and you were like, I can never tell him that these are contact lenses.
no.
So yeah,
Yeah.
well, now it's on internet.
Oh, shit.
But we should
No,
probably wrap
okay.
it up because
Yeah.
we have to
Yeah.
feed you, but thank you so much for coming. Our next Creative Conversations is gonna be November 6th. It's actually gonna be at either 4 p.m. or 1:30, we're deciding. And that's because we don't want to coincide with faculty assembly, but we do want to tell you guys how to not get sued as a creative writer. So we have a lawyer coming to talk about plagiarism, copyright, etc.
I believe.
IP, so it'll probably be in a
Yes.
bigger room because I'm gonna make more of my classes like
Yes.
forcibly, but because I need you to not get sued. All right. Well, thanks so much. Yay, Dini. Thanks, Zoom. Nice to see y'all. My big face.